name is Debbie Reynolds. They call me the Data Diva. Today I want to talk about data privacy, master face, and facial recognition. Some researchers at Tel Aviv University, some computer researchers, were working on facial recognition, and they actually came up with a way to fool facial recognition systems by using what they call a master face or an omni face. So the idea is to create have a computer generate a facial image that has kind of a broad set of markers that can be very general in terms of how it applies to the population. So for example, it may be that a certain number of people within a population may have faces that have similar kind of dimensions or, symmetry. Like for example, maybe, a certain set of population, their ears are a certain distance apart from one another, or their eyes are a certain distance from one another. But they were actually able to use this to unlock a lot of systems that use facial recognition as kind of identity systems. So this is actually pretty significant because facial recognition using things like on your phone and stuff, people think is relatively secure and hard to fool. But as we're seeing more advances in things like deep fakes and the ability to make kind of false faces or false images of people, these types of kind of adversarial attacks or the ability to kind of fool the way that facial recognition software operates is kind of challenging. The thing that they were able to do in their tests, they ran this, what they call a master face across a corpus of data, and they were able to unlock the identities of like 20% of the faces that were in this particular data set. Now, this could be very troubling. 20% doesn't sound like a lot, but it is if you're doing it at scale. Also, they're concerned about things like deep fakes, where the technology exists to be able to animate a face, even if it's not a real face, and make it seem as though it's a live person. So liveness detection is something that a lot of identity and authentication systems try to use to actually cut down on things like fraud. But as we're seeing, the technology is getting, again, more advanced and being able to sort of create situations where people and possibly bad actors can apply these techniques to be able to unlock identities is definitely troubling. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen with this. I know that as researchers are trying to improve facial recognition technology, they're looking very closely at ways that that people are finding to sort of get around that technology. And also we're seeing, or we have always seen, companies that are trying to use things like face and other biometric things as identity systems are also not using it as kind of the only way for people to be authenticated. So a lot of places like banks, they may use kind of multi-layered ways to be able to identify a person and not just by the face. But this is going to be really interesting to see how the technology develops and how people are able to catch up with it and prevent things like fraud and abuse. That's it. Thank you.